Glory.
Well, praise the Lord. It is good to be in the house of the Lord again.
Amen.
We have the privilege to read the Bible.
Yes.
Like Brother Starnes said, we just got back from marriage conference, and Brother Gary Johnson was our speaker. And he said something that I've been preaching for a long time, and I was so glad to hear it. Read your Bible slow.
Amen. Yeah.
That was good.
He says, God didn't create, God doesn't want any speed readers. You know? Have y'all ever tried to read the Bible in a year? I've done it twice, and it was speed reading.
Yes.
Exactly.
It was. I mean, right now we are on page 141 of notes from one book of the Bible. And I think we're about 4 months into it, ain't we? Yeah, about 4 months just to read one book, and that's in a 45-minute session each week. But I've been reading it all 4 months. And so it's a wonderful thing to study your Bible slow. Okay, so last week we left off in 1 Samuel chapter 24, and I was going to start reading verse 12, okay? Again, I want to just a little background. David had taken, in a cave, he had taken Saul's, a piece of Saul's skirt and basically shamed him, but he didn't kill him. So here we see David begins to speak to Saul, and Saul begins to speak back. And verse 12 says, "The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee. But mine hand shall not be upon thee, as saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog? After a flea? The Lord therefore be judge, and judge between me and thee, and see and plead my cause, and deliver me out of thine hand." Okay, now, I studied a bunch of words here, and these words, I noticed that sometimes King James would translate some words, and you look them up and they're different. You know, they're same word, but different, like the word judge here. The word judge in verse 12 says, it says, "The Lord judge between me and thee." If you look up that word, it says, it's shapat in Hebrew, and it says, pronounce a sentence. And again, David swears that he would not harm Saul, even though Saul was trying to kill him. Like we said, 21 times. David quotes an old proverb. Now, I could not find that old proverb anywhere. There must have been other sayings and things that weren't written down. I couldn't find that one other than here. And if y'all can find it for me, y'all tell me if y'all want to study about this proverb. The one that says, "The wicked comes from wicked comes wickedness, but the hand shall not raise against you." Now, then he also says, "What is a king chasing after a flea for?" That's pretty funny. Or, "Why is a king chasing after a dead dog?" You know? And then it says, "Let the Lord be judge." You know, we've seen the word judge up there, shapat. Well, here the word judge is different. Let the Lord be judge. The word there is dayan, D-A-Y-Y-A-N. And it means an advocate or a judge in law. Let the Lord be my lawyer. Let the Lord be my advocate. Now, who is our advocate?
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ is our advocate. So here we see David saying, God is my advocate, my judge. And then he says to plead my cause. And I like that word to plead. If you look it up, it was rib in Hebrew. And it means to grapple or to strive with my cause. And he says, deliver me. Well, that word deliver there is the same one up here as judge in verse 12. It's shapat. He says, deliver me and judge me between me and thee. Okay? And he also says that he wanted to be delivered out of the hand. This was an act of faith, a gesture of faith to Saul from David, because David had every chance to kill him already. Okay, let's go to verse 16. "And it came to pass when David made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, Is this thy voice, my son David? Saul lifted up his voice and wept. And he said unto David, Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me evil, whereas I have rewarded thee I have rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. Yeah. And thou hast showed this day how that thou hast dealt well with me. For as much as when the Lord had delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Wherefore the Lord reward thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now behold, I know that thou shalt surely be king, that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. Swear now therefore unto me by the Lord, that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home, but David and his men gat up themselves unto the hold. Okay, that's the end of the lesson 15, but let's go ahead and study these few words here. Now, notice in verse 16 that David's face was to the ground, and Saul recognized David's voice. And remember before when we were studying, Saul didn't even recognize David one time.
Right.
Remember? And now he recognized his voice. He's getting so familiar with David, he knows his voice. Again, in verse 17, David is following God's plan. He says, for thou art more righteous than I, he said unto David, and hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. David follows God's plan. Now, let's look up a couple scriptures here. Matthew 5:44 and Romans 12:20 and 21. Who's got Matthew 5:44?
Okay. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you.
Do you think that David personifies this scripture? You know, he does this. But what about Romans 12:20 and 21?
Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good.
Amen.
So we can overcome our enemies with love.
That's right.
We can. All right. And let's go one more. How should we treat our enemies? That was the question there being answered. Proverbs 25:21 and 22. Who's got Proverbs 25:21 and 22?
If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. And if he is thirsty, give him water to drink. For you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you.
Did you notice that
Amen.
that it's repeated from the Old Testament to the New Testament? You know. Okay. Now Saul recognized David as the anointed king, and the kingdom was going to be established in his hand. Now, what did Saul tell David to swear? Because Saul was the one who recognized that he would be king. What did he tell David to swear? To take an oath. He told him that he shouldn't destroy his kinfolk, right?
That he wouldn't cut off his seed.
That he wouldn't cut off his seed from the kingdom.
Destroy them.
And that word destroy is shamad in Hebrew, and it means to pluck down or overthrow. Now, in 2 Samuel, do y'all remember who David helps in 2 Samuel that's kinfolk to Saul? There was a little club-footed kid. He could barely walk. Mephibosheth, there you go, she got it. Mephibosheth in 2 Samuel. So David actually made an oath. I mean, you know, when you make an oath, the Bible actually tells you don't make any oaths. Don't swear by anything, because you can break them very easily. And David did not break this oath to Saul. Okay? And at the end of this thing, Saul went home. He quit chasing David for a little while. And it says that David went to a place called a hold, and that word is Masuda in Hebrew, and it means a fortress or a strong place. He went up into the wilderness, again, in the wilderness. All right, that's the end of lesson 15. Now let's go to lesson 16, which is chapter 25. It's 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 1. Samuel dies. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him, and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And I'm going to stop there because a new set of characters comes up next. Now, the great prophet Samuel has died. And they buried him in a place called Ramah. And do y'all remember what Ramah means? Do y'all remember what it meant in English? It meant the high place. Okay? Remember that Samuel had a prophet band where they sang and prophesied together up there in the high place in Ramah. And of course, Samuel was the leader of this prophet band. And David, again, in grief, where does he go? Where does he go? Down to the wilderness, right? And the wilderness of Paran. The word Paran means ornamental, and it is still there in Arabia. It's a desert. It's a desert. So he went to the desert. All right, let's go to verse 2. It says, "Now there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great and had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and of beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb." All right, so we introduced two more characters here. He says there was a man in Moan. Moan means a habitation, a dwelling. And he says he had possessions that were in Carmel. Carmel is a fruitful field. That's what that name means. Now, Nabal, a guy named Nabal. Again, do never name your kids Nabal. Because it means foolish dolt. It means an idiot.
What?
It means a foolish dolt, an idiot. Okay? Nabal means an idiot.
What's curlish?
Ah, I got that one too. Curlish. First I had to look it up in the Webster's Dictionary. Webster's Dictionary says churl means a rude, ill person, a stingy, morose person. In the Strong's Concordance, it says cruel, rough, stiff-necked, hard. Okay? He was a rude man, and his name meant foolish man. Idiot. I don't know. I mean, sometimes we look up these words and we're not sure. I mean, you could say, well, maybe Strong's was wrong, or no. Abigail later on says this man's name is just like he is. We're going to find that out. Okay. Now, there were some things about Abigail. Now, Abigail's name means father of joy. I don't know why it would mean father of joy, but maybe what it means is the father had joy when he had the baby. He named her Abigail. It says that she was of good understanding. Now, good in Hebrew is tov, and it means what it means, good. And understanding is sakal, and it means to be intelligent. She was an intelligent, and it said beautiful woman. And she had a churlish man for a husband. Truly, we see a great picture here of a battered woman. Somebody who's being treated bad. Okay? And we find out how God works. And it also says that Nabal was of the house of Caleb. Now, Caleb, you can take this two different ways. He might have been from the house of Caleb, or he could have been from the house of a dog. The word Caleb means dog. So, however you want to translate that, But, okay, so it says that he was shearing his sheep. Now, let's read verse 4. "And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men. David said unto the young men, Go you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him, that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast." Now I'm going to stop there. Now, in the Middle East, sheep shearing was an annual festival occasion. Okay? they had a feast when they had the sheep shearing. They would kill the feast and the sheep also and eat them. The news came to David, who was living in the wilderness, that they were going to have this feast, right? So David sends 10 men to greet Nabal. And he tells him, peace. Now, y'all know the name peace in Hebrew, right? What's it in Hebrew? Peace.
Shalom.
Shalom. All right, shalom. Shalom is one of the best words I've ever studied because it means safe, well, happy, health, prosperity, wealth, favor, and wholeness. One word can mean all those things. When you say shalom, it means that we're going to have prosperity, you're going to have peace, you're going to have joy. See, God gives us shalom. Okay, so David sends a message of peace, right, to Nabal. Verse 7. Now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not. Neither was aught missing to them all the while they were at Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Therefore let thy young men find favor in thine eyes. For we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand, and to the servants, and to thy son David. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David, and ceased. David wanted Nabal to know that when they were in the wilderness, that they protected his Nabal's properties. You know, that they didn't take the sheep, they didn't take any women, that they were good people, and they protected them from things. Okay? Now, it says here in verse 8 that they came in a good day. That word good day is Tov Yom, which means a feast day. Okay? So that's why I was telling you that the shearing is a feast day. Okay? David is asking Nabal, whatever you have to spare in your prosperity, could you give it to us? The message was sent in David's name. Verse 10. Y'all ready? Here comes Nabal. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? And who are the sons of Jesse? There be many servants. Now a days that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed from my shears and give it unto men whom I know not where they be? So David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him these sayings. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and about 200 abode by the stuff. Okay. How did Nabal react to David's request?
Not very good.
Not very good, really. What did, you know?
Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? That is good. That is exactly what I thought. That's what he said. Who do you think you are? He says, now this is something interesting. I had to kind of study this because that one part there, I kind of lost it where it says, there be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. He was accusing David and those men to be runaway slaves. You know?
Yeah.
It says, you could be runaway slaves for all I know, right? So the 10 men returned to David empty-handed. And what was David's reply when they brought the news back to him that Nabal had shunned them?
Get your swords ready.
Let's go fight.
Let's go fight.
It's time for war,
That's
right?
Wow.
Time for war. Of course, we know one of David's problems, we find out way later in his life, was he was a man of war. Okay? God doesn't really want us being men of war, unless we are called to be that. I'm not called to be a man of war myself. Maybe warfare in the heavens, but not on this earth.
Go to the war room.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go to verse 14. You ready? But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good to us. We were not hurt, neither missed it we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us, both by day and night. All the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do. For evil is determined against our master and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot even speak to him. All right. I like that in verse 14 when the messenger came, he told him that David came to salute us. And that word there is barak. And y'all know barak means bless, right? And he came to bless us. But he says, but your husband, Nabal, it says he railed them. Does anybody have a different version? Is anybody looking at it? He railed them. Well, that word railed in Hebrew is it, which is interesting. But it means to swoop down on. Nabal swooped down on those 10 men that came there and told them to get out of here, basically. And also, this man that came back to talk to Abigail had a good report for David. But he also warned Abigail that he's going to come and kill every man out here if we don't do something, right? And you can't talk to Nabal, right? Now, I had to look up some things out here. I like the other versions. The New American Standard Version in verse 17 says that Nabal was a worthless man. Now, the word Belial can mean devil. The son of the devil, right? Nabal was the son of the devil, or he was a worthless man. In the Amplified Bible, it says he's a wicked man. All right. Verse 18. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves, and 2 bottles of wine, and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she said unto her servants, Go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came against her, and she met them. Okay, before I go on, because I don't want to turn the page yet, Abigail brought a lot of food. When we think of two bottles of wine, what kind of bottles of wine would you think? You think you brought a little bottle of wine like that?
No.
No, these were skins that were huge wine skins, almost like a vat of wine. The huge wine skins that would hang off both sides of a mule. One mule to carry those 2. Okay? And of course, all the other food that they brought. And it says that when she was coming down, she created a convoy. The gifts came first, right?
Yep.
The gifts came first, and she came behind it. And she was in a covert, it says here. And when you look up covert, it means a hiding place. So she was kind of waiting to see what was going to happen when she let all this food on these donkeys come up toward the camp where David was in the wilderness. And then she came down behind them. And David seen her and came to meet her. This is one strange love story, too. It's another thing. Now, verse 21, I don't know if we're going to get through the love story today, but we're going to keep going. Verse 21, and David had said, Surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed in all that pertained unto him. And he hath requited evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light, and any that pisses against the wall. And when Abigail saw David, she hastened and lifted off her ass and fell down before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, Upon me, my Lord. Upon me let this iniquity be. Let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not, my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for his name is so. So is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself from thine own hand, now let thine enemies, and let them that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. Okay, I'm going to stop there for just a second. Now, when Abigail came down the hill, David was angry. Now, why was David angry? Something made him angry. Nabal told him he didn't have anything to give him.
Yeah.
Nabal said, I don't have enough to give you. I'm going to give it to my sheep shearers. Right? That's what he said. And he also said, who are you? That I should give you anything. When all of a sudden, a whole multitude of fruits and vegetables and meat and everything's coming over the hill. And it's all from Nabal. David's saying, well, why didn't I just kill him and take all this stuff? When he says something about leaving no one that pisses against the wall. Do y'all understand what that means?
Kill them all.
There's only ones that, who pisses against the wall? Not you girls.
No.
That's what it means. Men.
Yeah.
David was going to kill all the men. Every one of them. And that's one of the reasons that little sheep shearer guy ran back to Abigail, because he couldn't even talk to Nabal. So he went to Abigail. Well, Abigail comes and tries to do things. Now, I had a little trouble understanding verse 22, but after I studied several different versions, I kind of paraphrased it. It's David was saying that if he left one man standing, God would strike him dead. That's what he said. That's how it reads kind of in English, rather than the King's English. Okay. Now, did Abigail wait for David?
No.
No. She jumps off her donkey and she falls on the ground at his feet. And she bows. She does something called sheha. Sheha means to prostrate in worship or reverence. Then she said something about iniquity. Let this iniquity be on, this moral fault, this sin be mine. And then she calls herself, and she says that she is David's handmaid. Now, what is a handmaid?
Servant.
A servant, a slave, a girl slave, a female slave. If you look up that word, it's amma, and to this very day in Arabic, amma means a nurse. Okay, a servant, a woman servant. Okay. Abigail took responsibility for her husband, and she asked David for something called an ozin, a hearing. And she called her husband a man of Belial, a man of worthless, ungodly, evil. And then she says, he's just like his name, and folly is with him. The word folly there is Nabala. That means criminal foolishness. Have we seen that in the news lately? Criminal foolishness? Criminal foolishness. This man was a criminal fool. Typical battered housewife defending her husband, her useless, no good husband. How many girls, I mean, y'all, none of y'all are in that boat, but I have met battered women before, and some of them defend their worthless husbands.
He didn't mean it.
Huh?
He didn't mean it.
Oh, he didn't
It was
mean
my
it.
fault.
He still
It's
loves
sorry.
me.
It was my fault.
They really need to read this thing here, and if they pray hard enough, Abigail had some connections.
Yes, she
Well,
did.
it'd be rough.
Abigail had some connections. Okay, I'm going to run out of time. She made David know her intent also. She was a very attractive woman. And what did she tell David? I didn't do anything with your guys. Because that'd be the first thing you accuse a woman of if they're very beautiful, that they're sinful.
Uh-huh.
And she said, I'm not sinful. I've come in my name of my worthless husband.
Yep.
And she said, I am so thankful that you did not attack Nabal or his men, his workers. And she also told David, stating that David's enemy should be as Nabal. David's enemy should be useless and cursed. And in verse 27, it says, Now this blessing which thine handmaid hath brought unto my Lord. That word there is barakah, which means blessing, instead of bless. Again here, she calls herself David's slave. She calls herself David's slave 6 times in these scriptures. And she also calls him my Lord, Adon, where we get the word Adonai, Adon 14 times. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there because I've run out of time. Next week, we'll see where Abigail prays for forgiveness, okay? And also, David spares Nabal. And Nabal has a heart attack. We'll study that one next week, too.
You need some more red.
Good morning. How you doing?